One.
I wish you could remember where I got that sample from.
Oh, that's a sample. I hope I don't get copyrighted. I
No, no,
just
no, no. I mean, no. It's. I mean, I say it. They give me a satellite. It wasn't. It isn't. It's not even. That's not even what it says. It sounds like it's after I messed with it with lots. It was something from some obscure, like not even like a sign band, like some really obscure indie song that I found somewhere, and then when I took the little piece of it and like pitch shifted it and did all this stuff to it, it sounded like it was like some little kid saying "Give me a satellite," but that's not at all what it sound. That's not at all what the original was or anything like. I don't even think. I didn't think one of those advanced AIs would ever be able to figure out what it was from. I was looking through my old files the other day trying to see if I could figure out where it came from.
well,
And
good. I feel protected then. If the AI can't even figure it out,
there's no way. It's like I did that. I did that too. I had a sample on one track that that actually came from a really famous song at one point. I don't not one I have not one of the ones you have. It's one that I lost on a hard drive.
because Bollywood got me. First day I tried to use your music.
I still think it was the background. That's what I think it was. I
Well,
think it was. I think it was
no,
the
because
pre.
I've used. They didn't take the background down
I don't know.
when I
Well,
cleaned it up for
the claim.
copyright.
They dropped the claim right away though.
Yeah, they did. So I'm pulling up the news to see what's going on in the world, and it looks like Jack Smith, who's that? The lawyer, special counsel, is asking the Supreme Court to rule on whether Trump has immunity from prosecution. That's going to really piss me off. That like is the argument presidents can do whatever they want?
Jack Smith. God, did you have a more generic name than that? God damn.
Well, I mean,
He's like a real person. Sounds like something you'd make up for something you'd make up. But yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, that's. I think they tried to make the argument before. They tried to make the argument with Nixon too. I want to say, but then again, Nixon resigned before he could be prosecuted, so there's no real precedent there. So, that was one of the famous things that Nixon said was like when in the interview was like, do you think these things are illegal? And he said something to the effect of not when the president does it. You know.
but that's not gonna like that will protect Trump, but it won't protect all the other conspirators that got indicted along with him. So the
No,
thing's still
well,
going to go to trial.
yeah. I mean, I think, and from what I can tell now for sure, he might be the actual like evil mastermind behind it all, like manipulating all the puppet strings. More than likely, he himself is probably more a pawn in his own scheme just because how dumb he is than he. And there's such a narcissist, he's such a narcissistic dumbass that I think he's probably more a pawn in this scheme than he probably was behind it. I think he's involved certainly, but I don't see him as being like some master manipulative like type guy like that. I think it's more likely like the co-conspirators probably are the ones that probably. But at the same time, he bears more responsibility just because he was in a higher position of responsibility. That's how I see
Well,
it.
he was the leader. He was in the position of leadership.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if you're a leader, I don't care. Like if I when I managed when I was managing a movie theater or something, it didn't matter. If something one of my employees did had nothing to do with me, I still took responsibility for it because it was my employee. So I still think that he deserves responsibility, but at the same time, like I doubt he really had some big master plan to like keep the presidency or anything because he's just not that clever. But
Well, apparently he did have. It's not a master plan. It was a crazy throw anything at the wall until something works. But some of those things he was trying to throw at the wall were criminal, and his team kept telling him he can't do that, and he kept ignoring them and trying to find people that would do it anyway. And I guess the Supreme Court could just decline the request too if they didn't want
yeah,
to
and many
wade
times they
into this
do.
controversy.
Many times they do. Like I didn't know that was something that it wasn't even that long ago that I first learned that was like this the Supreme Court can just like be like nope, which
Yeah,
I
they
think
don't have to take cases.
yeah, it's just kind of funny. I was like it could be some big like whenever like the any of like those major cases that have come from the Supreme Court these last few years, they get like at any time like they could just like they just been like nope, I'm not gonna take it, and then the whole thing would have been avoided. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad they do take the cases. A lot of the cases they've taken, that they've done some. The Supreme Court has done some good. They've done some bad. They've done some good. But I don't know.
So
I think
that's like
you're read their.
that's
Have
the
you ever
most.
read opinions?
Go ahead.
I just said, have you read many legal opinions in general? Like some of the I did a research awful cracked. I can't remember much about it now. I have to go back through my archives here and find it. But like that was just about some of the most insane Supreme Court opinions who were written, and like there some of those guys were legitimately hilarious. Like I think they were trying to be too. Like they were some of the Supreme Court justices we have are some snarky assholes, man. They write some stuff in some of those opinions that you just can't help just like crack up at. They're just like because they get so mad at certain absurd things and everything that you just like that they just kind of like go off on the opinions. It's I need to see if I can find some. That'd be good. That would be good content fodder anyway to go through some really funny Supreme Court opinions, but I don't know if I can find them for sure. But yeah. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it'll come
That's
back to me.
all that catches my eye for the news today. Other than that, everything. Oh, and Vivek got caught peeing on microphone. He was on a Twitter space and he got up to pee. Everybody could hear him.
Oh,
It was him and Elon and Andrew Tate. They were talking. It was very conspiracist. They're talking about the globalists, and there's this idea that there's these psyops being run on people to control them and make them think and do certain things. And I'd like an example of what one of those psyops are from our conspiracist friends. But it was that kind of stuff. And the globalists are trying to get you to do this and that, and they're running these psyops to make you think this and do that. Like
John.
those people must be really gullible. Like don't go to a magic show in Vegas or a hypnotism show because you're gonna get like don't go to a psychic or something because you're gonna get really taken. How vulnerable do you have to be for strangers to be able to that easily manipulate you with psyops?
Well, they say with it. I like the hypnotism thing. Something's always bewildered me because like I've always been like because I have volunteered for those things before. Like
Yeah, I had a friend who was he was a plant. He had a friend that had a hypnotism show in Vegas, and the guy would use him as a plant in the audience to like help fake the show.
yeah.
He would
Okay.
hire him.
Well, there you go. I mean, that makes a lot more sense because I volunteered a couple of. I mean, it wasn't like big shows, but like it was like small town stuff. And there's a couple times I volunteered for it because like I've always been fascinated with everything from like like psychotropics for like hallucinations and hypnotism and stuff like that. I've never experienced any of it. I've never experienced anything like that. I've experienced some things I think that are supernatural or something. In fact, I've never like been on like a drug and like seen things that weren't there. I've never and I never I tried to I let people try to hypnotize me many times and like it not only did not do anything to me like I mean I wanted it to work and it didn't work. Like I wanted to like find out that oh yeah I looked like a chicken for an hour or something like none of it ever I
No,
never
it doesn't work on me either. I guess if you're gonna believe in the supernatural, gonna you're more likely to fall for a psyop.
but I do believe in the supernatural and yet I don't believe in a lot of that stuff. So like, I don't find any evidence of it either. I do believe in the supernatural, but I don't believe in. But I'm very skeptical when it comes to most. I mean, I think I'm skeptical of humans. Period. I believe in a God, so therefore I do believe that something supernatural is possible. But I guess I don't believe. Anytime a human being is claiming they can do something like that, is whenever I guess I tap out because like I just can't. I can't with all that stuff. It just doesn't really make sense.
And they specifically said in this Twitter space that it was the CIA doing this. So the theory is like the government is actually intentionally having meetings and planning out these psyops and implementing them against the people. So it's that level of conspiracy theory. But but I didn't listen long enough to hear what an example of one of these psyops was.
It's just funny that like during that conversation, the big headline is, I mean, you have to admit, like whenever like three people like that, those are three big people, right? Even if I don't, even if we don't like them, even when we don't agree with them, they're no denying the fact that those are big names. and they're sitting around talking about globalists or conspiracies and all this and psyops, manipulation, all this stuff. But the only headline that comes out of it is that the people caught him peeing on tape. I mean, I have to admit, like I'm not saying that it is. That does sound kind of conspiratorial. It sounds like someone's trying to cover something up, doesn't it? It's like don't look at the actual story of what they're talking about. Just pay attention to the fact that he peed on camera. Isn't that hilarious? Ha ha ha! Like, it's just weird.
Jack, what's an example of a psyop?
Oh, he's in there. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't notice there was anybody in the comments.
vampires, aliens. No, I don't believe in vampires. No, I don't believe in aliens. They would have come for me by now. No, I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, I feel the same way with the alien thing. It's like if they were real, then goddamn it, why haven't they already come and talk to me? Like I'm one of the weird ones, right? Like, but it seems like they only ever
Yeah,
go
they
on.
the mothership would have come for me a long time ago. They would have found me.
I mean, but it seems it's more than anything if they are real and they haven't, it's just kind of hurtful, then, right?
First of all, if they're real, they may be like billions of galaxies away. They might be anywhere near us in the first place. Second of all, whatever form of life developed in some other part of the universe is going to be so unlike anything we can imagine that I don't even worry about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And third, that like the way life developed here on Earth seems so unique that I'm not sure that is replicated anywhere else. It was a Twitter space with Elon Musk, Andrew Tate, Vivek Ramsey, some other people. It's the one where Vivek got up to pee and he had his microphone with him and everybody could hear him pee right there on the Twitter space. Magic, priest of nothing, all an illusion. That makes more sense than there's the CIA is running psyops. The fact that the world is an illusion, it's an artifact of our brains, that's for sure. Like our individual brain, none of us are experiencing reality as it is. It's all being filtered through and mediated by our individual brain structure and chemicals. What's the get type something specific that's a psyop? Like here, let me try to find examples.
See something cool I found in my house yesterday. I don't know where it came from. It's like somebody did
There
like
are
a
three main types: strategic, operational, and tactical. What's the difference? Strategic includes informational activities conducted by U.S. government agencies outside of the military arena. What's an example? Operational are conducted across the range of military operations, including during peacetime in a defined operational area. Tactical are conducted in the area assigned to a tactical commander. See, we need Joshua Jones up here because he was a tactician.
I mean, Joshua Jones had said before that psyops are real,
And
and that
there's
they are.
white psyops, gray psyops, and black psyops. White
Yeah.
psyops is attributable to psyop as a source. Gray psyops are deliberately ambiguous. And a black psyop is usually hostile in nature and covert. Covert psyop is not a function of the U.S. military, but instead is used in special operations due to their political sensitivity and need for higher level compartmentalization. And this is all from Wikipedia, by the way. The article is Psychological Operations, United States.
I mean, there are some admitted. I mean, they're usually pretty small scale, but there are definitely psyops that are absolutely admitted and like that are.
I'm trying to find an example. They seem the sites I pulled up. It's a specific military like
No, it is. It's a military thing. It's absolutely a military thing. I mean, any kind of propaganda is considered a psyop. Like whenever they drop whenever like they were they drop supplies over the Middle East or something like that, and they would include those propaganda type they
Well, what's one that the CIA is currently doing on the American people?
well, we wouldn't know about it because they're still doing it, right? So.
Well, there's are experts out there that think that they have penetrated into it.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all it's all speculative though. It's all speculative.
Yeah, that's what I keep saying. It's
Let me
the
see.
history of
Let me
US.
look at the search and see if I can actually find like. 'Cause
I'm gonna ask Chat GPT.
I have seen a list before of like actual of like Mostly it's failures and CIA psyops. But let me see.
Psychological operations involve influencing people's emotions, attitudes, and behaviors. Even that fascinates me. Like how people are so different. How can you guarantee a particular emotion, attitude, or behavior? One
That's how.
notable example is Operation Mockingbird during the Cold War era. It allegedly involved the CIA's attempt to influence media outlets, journalists, and news organizations to promote certain narratives or viewpoints aligned with the agents. So they were trying to use the media to promote certain narratives, and it says allegedly. While the full extent remains a subject of debate, it raised concerns about so you can use a narrative like put a particular story out there. Well, the woke do that.
Okay, how about this one? I'm gonna try to
How
find
is
the.
systemic racism not a psyop?
I do. I
Go
think it
ahead.
is. I absolutely think system racism is a psyop. Absolutely. Okay, here, check this article out here, Jeff. Like this is absolutely real. This has been verified. This is actually the Independent, the newspaper, and this is one of those crazy ass CIA stories that like absolutely. This is one of the. It's actually an interesting story anyway. But the CIA
Can you
literally.
put it in the private chat?
Oh, sure. But the
I can't
CIA
click on it.
is largely responsible for the entire.
Oh, y'all posted this the other day, yeah, and I was very skeptical of it because that's not how art works. But yeah, so individual is bad. That's an opinion. Brown, white, good, bad. Like, yeah, like systemic racism. Those are ideologies. But what makes them psyops? They would have to be deliberately like planned in some kind of CIA meeting and then deployed. Like if the CIA was getting together and saying, "Hey, let's create this narrative that there's racism and white people are evil, and let's inject it into the academies and get them to buy it," and then but that happened all on its own. It wasn't like a coordinated team of people making it happen, other than maybe the academics themselves. But also, I think that's more of an agenda than a psyop because I think they genuinely believe in this stuff and they want the world to believe it. Systemic racism is transgender agenda is a psyop. I do believe that transgender people exist, and as we talked with Liberty the other day, there's the term has expanded so much to include like it used to be just the medical transgenders they call them, and now it's the autogynephiles. In fact, the guy who created the trans flag was an autogynephile, and it includes the transsexuals that are not they just socially transition. They like identify with that gender, but they don't medically intend to transition. So all of that seems emergent. It doesn't seem manufactured. And there's something about the concept of psyop to me that implies something
Well,
manufactured.
but a lot of those people are not transgender and are like are
They are
doing like.
now because they've expanded the definition of the term, just like they're straight queer people now.
Well, no, sure, no, that's not what I meant though. But I mean, those people like there's people that have almost like brainwashed by TikTok and stuff that think that they might be transgender. Those are the ones that we always see acting all crazy and everything that
Yeah,
don't even try to pass, and they're like upset that people misgender them and stuff like that. Like those are the people that have been psyoped, you could say. Like, or even if it's
but
not an
but
intentional.
when you say psyop, that makes me think the CIA planned this. Like
Yeah, but
so,
that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, but there's people who've been affected by a psychological, a psychological like effect like
if
that, and
if it was a psyop, there was a person or group of people behind it. So who would be behind it as a
well,
psyop versus just activism?
no, I mean, in the case of the transgender thing, I don't feel like there is like a specific group behind it. I was just saying that that is a way that people can be. But the CIA modern art thing is a really good example of a an actual situation where it's been proven that the CIA did this. They actually did. They went out, they found those artists, they promoted that art, they used it to elevate American art above like Russian artists and stuff like that in during the Cold War. And I mean, and it was like a really subtle, weird
But that's
psyop.
not a psyop. What was the psyop? All they were doing was promoting art.
Hey, Joe. feel free to come back on. Anybody, please come on. Go on, talk about this stuff.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's.
hey, yeah.
I mean, you. I guess. I mean, you could say that you could argue that about. I guess anything that you call anything you could call a psyop. You could say that it's
What
just
one? But the
propaganda.
psyop, according to the definition I just read, like I just went through, and ChatGPT helped me out too, is when they deliberately create a narrative to try to influence people psychologically, emotion, attitude, behavior. Promoting art is not the art itself would have to be part of the psyop. Like the art, and it even says they used unwitting artists. So the artists weren't even involved in crafting the narrative or the message. So how could that be a psyop?
Well,
The CIA would have to go to the artist and say, hey, instead of doing the art you're trying to do this art instead and put this specific message in and we'll pay you. But that's not what happened. All they did was like promote their art, like fund and finance them to do the kind of art they were already going to do.
at this point, I think it's just a semantic definition type thing. Then, because like
But
I mean, like
semantics are important, especially when words keep getting stretched the way they are now, and everything is genocide and violence and harm. And oh yeah, that reminds me, there was a few tweets I wanted to look at about some definitions, and one of them was the definition of occupation. I want to dispel some of these like linguistic distortions and get really precise with the language. Occupation as defined by Article 42 of the regulations annexed to the Hague Convention, whatever. A territory is considered occupied when it is actually placed under the authority of the hostile army. The occupation extends only to the territory where such authority has been established and can be exercised. The IDF is operating in Gaza legally against Hamas in response to October 7th. Neither the IDF nor the Israeli government has authority over Gaza. This is an active war, not an occupation. So people who keep using the word occupation are not being accurate. Um, yeah, I guess that's the one I wanted to show. This other one makes the point that international law derives from treaties, and treaties take precedence over, they supersede any form of international law. And we have specific treaties with Israel, and Israel has treaties with other countries. So those are important in determining what's what. Okay, let's see. What gate? Okay, gatekeeping. What? Talk to me about gatekeeping. Well, a psyop has to be created. Like it has. It's some people that have to. They want a particular outcome, and they craft some kind of narrative or tool or stimulus that's going to achieve that outcome. So when you say let it loose, the thing they're letting loose is something that they create or decide on.
well, have you ever seen? Like? Of course, there was a movie that kind of a comedy movie made about it too that featured the same thing. But there has been actual footage released by North Korea, for example, that shows like these really clean, like nice looking streets with stores that are open and all this stuff like that. And
Oh,
it's
like the
been
Potemkin villages.
yeah, and then it's been proven that that stuff is all fake. They create this fake narrative of how
They do that
prosperous.
in Vegas too. They sweep all the homeless people off the strip
Yeah,
to
and that's
make
that will consider a
Vegas
site.
to make the strip look a certain way. But that's not. I wouldn't call that a psyop. But yeah, a Potemkin village could be an example. But how? Where? Leave the CIA out of it. Where is anybody doing something like that here in the U.S.?
Well,
If there's psyops happening at all, it's happening on social media from individuals manipulating reality in their tweets, their YouTube videos, distorting facts, misusing language, etc. Like individuals.
yeah, I mean
If you let
that happens too. That happens a lot too. There's a lot of people out there that just lie in different ways just to promote their own narrative. And like they staunchly stand behind it. They create stock accounts and stuff like that to try to support it. They do a whole thing just to try to create a narrative that make people believe it. Anything like that is a psychological operation to consider. I don't. I
Well,
mean, the CIA.
no, because a psychological operation is something very specific. That's what I'm saying with the language again. It's the government's doing it. It's military. It's not just a random person making a YouTube video. But they could be doing the same thing. I just wouldn't call it a psyop. Like they don't have the authority behind them to elevate it to the level of a psyop. It's just misinformation. And to me, the psyop is a specific subset of misinformation.
Okay, look at this right here. I want you to look at this, Jeff. I want you. This is how real psyops are. This I think this kind of puts a lid on this actually. Look at this. This is the U.S. Army's website.
Okay. Joshua Jones, if you're out there, we're summoning you. We're putting out the bat signal. Okay, psyop soldiers strategically, for during a war.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like
And
it's so
the argument has been made that we are in a fifth generation war right now, which is a not non-military, but they don't use traditional weapons. It's not an on the ground war. It's fought through psychological warfare.
my point is just like it's such a real thing that they even have a page on their own website recruiting people to join the psyop program.
Right, because it's something specific. And to say that the person on social media is running psyops from their Twitter account, that's not a psyop. That's just spreading misinformation.
They're attempting it. They're attempting
or
one. They're not doing a very good job, but
they're not attempting it if they're not working for an official agency that coordinates and creates these psyops. It seems like a very top-down, state-sanctioned activity.
Okay, I thought that's what you were saying. You didn't think was real. I guess I got confused then. And to become a psyop soldier, you'll need to pass a 10-day course. Just 10 days is all it takes.
That's it. I don't have the foreign language proficiency, but
10-day course.
I might have everything else.
That's just the initial. That's a psyop assessment and selection where you'll be tested on your physical and psychological fitness to become a candidate for the elite force. Next, you'll begin a 43-week official qualification course where you'll learn the core skills of psyop soldiers, including basic speaking, listening, proficiency in a foreign language, military intelligence, advanced interpersonal communication. And then
when I was like in my early 20s, me and a friend went to town, and he had an old raggedy car that kept breaking down, and like it kept breaking down, and we kept having to push it like 4 or 5 times while we were riding around town. And one time it broke down right in front of the military recruiting office. So we like pushed it into their parking lot, and we went inside to see if we could use the phone or get some help or something. And they talked me into taking, they're like, we'll take this test real quick. We want, like, all of you take this test. And I took it, and apparently I scored a perfect score. And the guy got on the phone, and he like called his superiors and was like, hey, we got a guy in here. He just made a perfect score on this test. We need to like recruit him or something. So they wanted me to sign up for the military. Like, they kept talking me into signing up just based on this test score, and all we wanted was our car fixed so we could get back home.
Yeah,
that was my experience with like qualifying for something military.
No,
and the test was super easy. Like, to me, any high school student.
They give you an ASVAB test. I also had,
and it was short. It was like the short, quick version to see if it's worth recruiting this person. Right. It wasn't a very long test.
I think I was like one on the ASVAB. I was like 1 short point shy of a perfect score or something like that. I had military recruiters calling me through the entirety of my high school. My last year.
Yeah, they got all excited after I took this test. They were like calling people to their office and getting on the phone and everything.
Yeah, especially the Air Force. The Air Force really wanted to recruit me. The Air Force was like really adamant about it. And I wasn't interested. But if I
would join, I want to do their obstacle course. I want to go through basic training, and I want to do that obstacle course. I'm so envious of that obstacle course. Like, really? I wish there was a way for civilians to just do the obstacle course. That's the only reason I want to be in the military. And once the obstacle course is over, I don't want to do any other stuff.
Basic training is the thing that makes me not want to be in the military the most. I was always like, because I'd always see all these movies of like all the horrors of basic training and stuff like that. That always like, and then like, making people like run around like, just like the woods until like they collapse and shit like that. And that was always the stuff that made me like I was like, I'm not that physically fit. I just don't think I'd make it.
They did that with my brother. He was in the Marines, and he the sergeant had this piece of bacon bit stuck in his teeth, and my brother kept noticing it. He couldn't stop laughing, and he kept giggling while the sergeant was yelling at them. And so the sergeant made him. This was in the desert. They chased him on a golf cart for like a mile or two while he ran. He had to like outrun the golf cart in the desert for giggling at the bacon bit in the sergeant's tooth. And I would have done the same thing. I know I would not be able to not laugh at something like that.
That was my problem too. Like the drill sergeant thing specifically. Like I know how I deal with like people like getting in my face and like yelling at me like that, and like I don't deal with that well at all. And it's not like in a. I don't mean like in a
Yeah, I
physical.
don't either. Don't get up in my face and yell at
Yeah,
me.
I know that I know that I would snap. I'd end up punching the
I'm
guy.
an Enneagram 8, and I will give it right back.
Yeah, me too. And like, and I know that that's not what you're supposed to do. And like
And we will fight.
Private.
that was the main reason.
And I'm not intimidated by you, so it's gonna be on like a chicken bone. So Jack,
You get that.
educate me.
What'd you say, Jack?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yo, you cutting out. You have your
He says, educate me
connection.
hard.
Your connection's doing its thing.
Yeah, your connection's real bad, man. Anyway, he'll fix it in a minute.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's
no,
a psyop.
I grew up watching movies. Yeah, it's a psyop. I grew up watching movies like Full Metal Jacket and Stripes, and
I never have seen that one.
you never seen which one?
Full Metal Jacket.
You never seen Full Metal Jacket?
No.
It's mostly famous for the first half of it, which is all set basic training, and like that's the most famous part of it. That nobody really remembers much of the rest of it. It's a Kubrick film. I mean, it's worth watching. It's got some great, but like it's like the Arlie Ermy. You know who Arlie Ermy is? He actually was a drill sergeant, I think, in the military before he became an actor. And like, so he plays the drill sergeant. Like, it's like the whole thing is like this drill sergeant, like, you know, just getting in these guys' faces, like, you know, calling them maggots and shit like that, like constantly. And like,
that would just make me laugh. I would not be able to take that seriously.
It wouldn't scare me. I'd be like, what do you? Cause the whole time I'm thinking like that, like. I mean, I guess you could hit me or something, but then I'm pretty sure, like, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd get in trouble for that. So, you know, like, it's like, I don't know. It doesn't like. It would just like make me just like laugh, and then I'd probably get in real trouble and end up going to the brig, or I'd get like court-martialed or some shit out there. So like, but the Air Force recruiter that was so like so hard up in recruiting me, he tried to like make me all these promises that. But I had some friends that went to the military that got similar kind of offers, and every single thing that the recruiters told them was a lie. And when they actually got to the actual when they actually got past that point, and they found out that all those things that they were being told were absolutely just bullshit. That they were just telling them that because just to get them to sign the paper.
Well, wait, they can't back out of it if it was deception.
No, yeah, they can totally back out of it if it's not in paper, if it's not written in your contract, like they can do anything that they want. They can tell you to your face that we're going to give you $1 million and and like a harem of young women and all this. Like they can tell you all that shit to your face, but then whenever you actually go and sign the papers, if you read the contract, you'll see what you're actually getting into, and it's just not the same thing. I mean, they didn't promise me women and money, but they promised me like, oh, he said I can guarantee you'll never do a day of basic training. You know, we want you for technological.
I wouldn't believe that. Everyone has to do basic training. I wouldn't believe that if somebody told me that.
I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it at all because I'd had friends that had actually gone in. One of my best friends growing up, his brother went into the army because of a similar thing where he got a really high ASVAB score and stuff like that, and they made him all these promises that once he got, he didn't, and so much so that and the guy was so buddy to him, so nice to him that he trusted him, and he signed the paper without reading it, signed the contract without reading it, and then like he got there and every single thing, almost every promise the guy made him was complete bullshit, and he was miserable. He hated it. He did.
Well, did he say anything like, "You guys lied to me. This is complete bullshit"?
Yeah, but they don't. They're like, well, you should read the contract.
Oh, he didn't read the contract.
Yeah, if you just listen, like they can tell you whatever they want, but the contract's the only thing that matters.
And how do you keep the respect of your recruits from doing that? Like, I would lose so much respect for any superior that did that to me. I've had employers do that to me, and I lost respect for them
because you'll never see the recruiter again. The recruiter only does recruitment, and then once past that point, you're.
But the recruitment represents that branch, so the loss of respect would carry over to.
That's, I mean, like the stories of like my friend's brother and then another guy I knew are the reason that I had no respect or any faith in the military as an institution. Period. Because I heard firsthand from people that I knew and one of them was a really good friend of mine named Adrian too, and he told me all the lies they told them and like all the things that they did. He kind of liked it anyway. He actually kind of liked being in it, but he ended up getting himself discharged too because he couldn't take like the kind of things they wanted him to, the kind of things that he was being recruited to do. he just felt morally like he couldn't handle it. And so, but in both cases, they both one of the guys had like somebody sending weed in the mail or something like that, so he could get just having it just so they could find it in his in their one of the spot checks in the bunkers or the bunks or whatever, and like that way that they would give him a discharge. They got dishonorably discharged before they got out of basic training. No, I take that back. No. My friend Adrian, he went through basic training. I think he didn't get his discharge until he was actually out of basic training for almost a year. But still,
I would love to be in the military. Particularly the Air Force, because I want to fly planes, but I would be horrible at it because of my coordination. But
oh yeah, and we're both way too old. They never let us do it now. So
yeah, I missed that.
Air Force literally Air Force focuses specifically on young men too. Like they started after me after I think the ASVAB when I was like 15 or 16, and like I was hounded all throughout like 16, 17, 18. 19. I finally started recognizing the numbers. They would, or then, and I didn't. That's actually what started with the whole. I mean, nobody does it anymore, but this is back when caller ID was still new, and at first, the number would come through as it would have like something that said like military or something, but they start blocking the number after a while, and I stopped answering unknown numbers because of that, because I got so many calls from it. I occasionally the Navy recruiter kind of wanted me to, but the Army and the Marines recruiter both recognize. I think I'm not sure. I actually asked the Air Force recruiter. I was like, so why did, because all four of them I worked in the mall at the time. Is the reason why and where I was working at was right across from like all of the military recruitment offices. They were all four right there. And that's how they kind of got me. I was doing this one of these jobs where you don't really do anything all day. I was running the Christmas train, it's like the train for kids,
They Christmas tree.
Yeah, they can pay $1 and they get on this little tiny train, and my job
was you have to mash the button.
Yeah, and during the daytime there was nobody there. And so one of them got over. He was like, "Come on, you got nothing to do. Take the test." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I got nothing to do. We'll take the test." And I did it. And then I was, and they were all like, "Well, you did I mean, you're only 1 point out for a perfect score, man. Like, what do you want to do in the military? You can do anything you want. I mean, you can write your own ticket for this." And all that shit. But the military and the Army branches, the recruiters, they weren't that interested in me. And I asked the Air Force, I don't know, he might have been lying that when he said to me this too. I asked him well, why is the Army and the Marines guys, why are they leaving alone? He said well, your profile from what we see is you're probably you're more of an independent thinker type person, and that doesn't really jive too well with Army Marine type thing. That's the reason why we want you in the Air Force. And it's probably just propaganda bullshit. I think he just for whatever reason he thought it was good for somehow it's going to be good for his recruiting good people because it's good for their career or something, I guess, or something. I don't know. I mean, I
guess it's helpful to be a follower if you're in
if you're in the Army.
If you're a foot soldier, they probably want people that can just take orders and not overthink things.
I mean, I think they want that in all the branches, though. I don't believe that about the Air Force and the Navy either. But the Air Force and Navy guys still were more because I showed a high proficiency with technology too. I'm very technology proficient. I really was as a kid too, and that was they both were focusing on trying to promote me for tech operations, like actually running equipment, stuff like that. I mean, I kind of would have wanted to fly a plane.
Well, but do you think we're safer with that you didn't do it, or if you had done it? Are we safer for?
I wouldn't have got through basic training, so it wouldn't make any difference. So. There's no way. There is no way in hell I would handle the drill sergeant thing. I just know I would definitely laugh.
We would work it out.
I would.
I mean, they would learn. I would train them.
You would train the drill
sergeant with all my teachers, as it is, and every other adult.
I don't know. I don't. Do I think that the country is safer because I didn't take it? Yeah, probably so. I don't know. I'm not, and plus I'm pretty anti-war anyway, so I don't really have a lot of
war is very necessary as long as we live with
necessary. But I mean, for myself, I am personally. When it comes to my personal life, I'm a pacifist.
Well, anti-war makes it seem like you don't think there should ever be war.
I mean, I think we should avoid it at all possible. I think that war.
Well, I think we do avoid it when possible.
Yeah, well, sure, but that's fine. I mean, that's all I'm saying. There is I think we should avoid it at all possible. It's not something that I'm. It's something I want to be part of. I don't want to be part of a war.
Okay. Well,
I like I said, I'm past this my daily life. I mean, like I don't like. I mean, whenever confronted with any kind of physical violence or something like that, like I will fight back. I would fight back if it absolutely was necessary. But so far in my life, I've always been able to talk myself out of those situations and avoid them. And I would do that in every situation. I would never like willingly or do anything to cause myself to be forced into a physical altercation. I just I
Well, then, yeah, it's probably good that you didn't
I mean,
join.
and granted, according to the Air Force guy, I wouldn't have been doing anything because they wanted me like I probably would end up being a drone pilot or something. I would have been killing people, but not with my hands or something. I'd be doing it with like a video game probably. That's more than like I'm guessing. I don't know. I mean, that was God. I'm 42 now, so
Welcome back, Jack. How's your internet? Okay.
besides, I wanted to be a filmmaker more than anything in the world. That was what I wanted to do, and the military had no
By the
program.
way, are you working on that movie? Or are you
No, I
making a
am.
movie?
No, I am, man. It's just I have been trying so hard to get all this.
Because we talked about doing a read through of that script too.
No, yeah, now that I'm down for anytime. Anytime we can get that together,
Well,
I'm down for it.
let me know.
But it just depends on we just gotta find the people to do it. So.
Yeah. How big is the cast? But we could double up parts, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like there's two main characters. There's Carter and Sean, and then there's a fairly large supporting cast. Most of them are pretty small parts.
Like the women.
There's two female roles that are fairly prominent.
So
And
Carter's the main character. He's the one with all the ex-girlfriends.
yeah, Carter's the main character. Sean's
And
his best
Sean is
friend.
his friend.
Yeah, two of the girls that they're involved in the main setup are only like they only have like one scene each. That's the first scene,
And then everybody else is a minor character.
and then the two girls that he kind of really seriously dates throughout the film, they both are pretty major. And then like there's only one other character that's kind of like a mid-range character, which is I think Scott, and he's kind of like the Carter's partner and like the venue they're running. So that would be the character that if I were going to make the movie today, I would play that character. That because that's the character that I would slot to that role most easily. But beyond that, like there's not. I mean, it's like a lot of minor roles that aren't really like.
Do you have acting experience, or is it just writing and directing?
I don't have any. I don't really have much. I mean, my most onset movie experience that I have is is working with Thomas as I mostly as the writer, but then I've held lights and I've held sound boom mics stuff like that, but I haven't actually directed or I don't. I mean, I've been around film directing stuff like that. I understand how it works to be. If I studied directing, but I've never actually had the chance to do it because I've never had the equipment, never had the money, never had anything like that. So
So mainly writing.
acting experience. I've done a lot of sketch acting. I did a lot of live sketch acting work. That's about it. I'm not a bad actor. I've been evaluated. I did went this weird like evaluation thing for different art stuff, and I did like a couple of scenes from something. I can't remember why I did that now. It's a little long, but yeah, I mean, I've gotten like kudos for decent acting before, but I mean I've never tried to be a professional actor. That's never was something I wanted to do. I was just saying that if I had to play a role in my own movie, that's the role I'd play. I would cast it to somebody before I do that, but.
Well, I don't know if we have Jack back or not.
No, we do. Jack, if you are there, talk. It's weird. Like the little play symbol keeps coming up on my screen, and like I have to keep hitting it every time a new window opens or something like that. I don't know what's going on. Like my browser is going haywire again. I don't know what the hell. I just restarted it entirely because it crashed. So I don't know why it's doing this.
Yeah, no, I had a bunch of stuff to say earlier, but for some reason my internet was freaking out on me. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but
well, say it now about drill. We were talking about drill sergeants then. So what were we saying?
Well, before that, we were talking about psyop.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, regarding gays in the military, that's an interesting topic. No, I wanted to be in the military too. That was like my pretty much my dream was to be like secret agent man when I was a kid. So I think
Look at you now.
Yeah, exactly. No, but because where I grew up, we had access to a lot of programs that were trying to recruit kids into the military and stuff like this. So, but like different kinds of military. So like I got to go see like some, military academies and, and also like they gave you like a very rigorous understanding of history and stuff like this. So it was a very interesting. I mean, it was more of like a philosophical thing for me, but I'm glad that I didn't because I definitely, well, there's a lot of reasons why it didn't end up happening for me, but one of the things is like I knew that what we were doing with the Iraq war was totally wrong, and that really turned me away from the military because, yeah, I mean, I was like, whatever the United States is doing, I don't want to be a part of it. And then, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but some people who were in my family and were part of the military told me very seriously not to consider doing it because they said that they knew some things about what was going on that was just too much for stuff they couldn't tell me, but they said just trust them that what was going on was really horrible. So that had a big impact on me.
Were they in the military? Like, were they in a position to know things?
Yeah, some people very close to me and my family were in the military and has some sort of knowledge and basically told me whatever you think is going on, it's 100 times worse, and don't get involved. That's what they told me. Yeah. So, and they still won't tell me what they know. So, yeah. I mean, that's just an opinion. That is, it did have a big impact on me. So, but that didn't really deter me for a long time because I thought that, getting in the military is the way you would change things. But obviously, I think they weed out for that pretty well. So.
And if
they want people that are just gonna.
If they don't weed you out from it, they end up putting you into some like really fucked up thing where like you become an assassin or something like that, where you literally have to kill people constantly.
Well, I'm gonna do a whole series if I ever have time about the YouTubers who are like ex-military people because a lot of them tell some pretty fucked up stories about what they saw in the military, especially once they got out and became private contractors and stuff, about how closely related the private industry and the government is. But anyways, so the argument I was going to make about the PSYOP thing is this. So, Jeff, if you're at a party, so let's just take the transgender thing, right? Like you think that the teaching people that transgender stuff is not really good, right?
I don't know that you can teach like true transgenderism, medical transgenderism. I don't think you can teach it or not teach it.
The version that they're teaching kids now, right?
The transgender.
It's called transgenderism too.
Yeah. No, I don't believe that belongs in schools at all. And there's an ideology behind it. Like if they just taught it as sexuality or whatever, that's one thing. But they're teaching an entire ideology attached to it. That to me is political indoctrination.
Right. But you don't think it's a PSYOP because
I don't think the CIA planned it or the government or the military.
Okay. Well, let me give you
if anything, it's the queer theorist.
So let me give you an explanation of how it is, in my opinion. So if you look at it like this, so if you go to a party and you hear somebody saying stuff like that, like you can have a straight queer person, for example, right? Which is true by their definition, but let's just
because the definition's changed.
Right. So exactly. So let's just take that as an example. So if you're at a party and you hear that, right, and you're like, "Wow, that person's really crazy," and then let's say that 10 years later you go to you become president of the United States and you can pick the Secretary of Education, and you pick that person, and then now this person makes it mandatory to be taught in all the government.
I wouldn't pick that person.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying.
I might disband the Department of Education.
But I'm saying, okay, let's say that you're a person that liked it and you appointed this person and they put that into the schools, right? Well, that is what's going on right now, where the government is literally picking people who have that ideology and are
but intentionally, like but okay, yes, probably. I do think Biden is putting woke people in positions of power under the influence of his advisors and cabinets and whatever, but that's not a PSYOP.
How's that not a psyop? I mean, that definitionally is. I mean, if you know a lot, if you know something,
How is it a psyop? It's not the
you know
CIA or the
something-
military like running an operation on the public. It's him putting people that align with his agenda in positions of power.
well, put it this way:
Same as if Trump went in and appointed some anti-woke person.
if you are a continuity of government person that wants your society to be strong and survive, and you see a president or someone who does such things and you don't stop it, then what are you doing? Are you doing your job? Yes or no? I mean, like, at what point do you say that it's collaboration versus oh, it's just an accident, they just let it happen?
Collaboration with who?
So so you admit that the government is indoctrinating children into this, right?
No. Schools are. Some schools. Some
Well,
teachers. It may not even be school-wide. It could be
school-
activist teachers,
school-
individual
the
activist teachers.
the school is run and governed by the government, right? So,
Well, more at the local level. That's why we see variations across the country. But in the Department of Education, like let's say he did appoint some woke person and they started mandating it from the national level.
well, the Secretary of Health is literally like,
right, but that's not a psyop. That's just him appointing somebody into a position that has a particular agenda. It's not like the CIA getting together and say, hey, this is the narrative we're going to plan, and we're going to put you in this department, we're going to put you in this department, and we're going to make sure that the public gets indoctrinated into the... I don't believe it's that level of conspiracy.
Why does it have to be the CIA and not other people?
Because that was the definition of psyop that I got off of Wikipedia. Like, and to go outside of that, you're stretching the definition. And I'm trying to keep categories bounded.
Let's just take the term psychological operation. Do you think?
Well, I'm afraid you're gonna be able to make the case that all education is a form of psychological operation, because like education is kind of an operation. And you're going to dilute the meaning of the term to anybody that teaches anybody anything is suddenly a psyop, because it's a psychological operation. It's operating on the psychology of people. Pedagogy, there's a psychology to education. And since the time of Plato, if not before, like with pedagogy. And how do we most teach effectively? And to do that, you have to understand the psychology of the people you're teaching. But I don't think that would qualify something as a psyop. It takes more than just that to be a psyop. And there's indoctrination too. But I think even that is not sufficient to be a psyop unless it's coordinated at some governmental level. Did he fade out? I guess so.
Yeah, I think he lost connection again. I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, in terms of like you're trying to use
I think people want to. They have these very dramatic imaginations or want to live very dramatic lives. So they use terms like, oh, it's a psyop. Oh, it's a genocide. They hyperbolize to make it more exciting. But I'm much more concerned with accuracy.
I had a phone call. So let me walk this back. Oh. So would you say that Goebbels and Mean Mustache?
We can't hear you, Jack. I can hear you talking, but it's all muffled. It's completely muffled. Yeah, we lost you. Okay. Anyway.
Happens every time.
I see what you're saying. Like, you're trying to stick to like the classical definition of it and everything like that.
I'm trying to stick with the definition of it. What's the non-classical definition? The one that people just make up?
Okay, use colloquially. I can't say that word. Can be used in a colloquial sense. Even if it's not the that's the way language evolves and changes, is because like people use words in different ways sometimes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but I think communication suffers from that.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I mean it does. Well, yeah, it's natural. Some of it's completely natural, and some of it just happens over time. I mean, it's not necessarily like I mean, just like you can look at like so many words. I mean, look at the word like a word that nowadays is a slur for gay people, with the F word, and the initial original meaning of that word was a bundle of sticks meant for
But it
kindling.
also happens organically, and if it's not organic for me to adopt the colloquial definition of psyop, then I'm not going to do it.
I mean, all right,
Like I don't know why. I don't know the motive of people that want to claim this word for everything that's not a psyop, but it has a perfectly good,
Okay.
very specific definition. I don't understand why people want this word for other things that are not
I mean, I
psyop,
guess we
and
can
that
come
they're
up
willing to fight over it.
we can come up with a new
Well,
word.
you can go by the old-fashioned definition if you want, but get with the times, dude. Everything's a psyop now.
That's not what I meant, man. I wasn't being like that. I was just saying like I was just saying that like I mean this is kind of like it's just kind of like the way language and
It's making it seem like I don't understand language, how language works, but they're
no,
the ones that are
I'm not
abusing
at all.
language, and it's like gaslighting me that you don't understand language when the people that
That's
are
not what I'm
abusing
saying.
language are the ones that are misusing it.
I'm not saying you're not understanding. I know you're understanding it. I was just making an argument for like the reason why people use that term outside of that initial
Right,
definition.
but they're misusing it, and there's nothing wrong with me pointing that out, and
There's
not
nothing
being
wrong with it.
painted as somebody that's just not with the new definition of the term.
I wasn't painting you that way. I wasn't saying that.
It sounded like it.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I apologize, and that's entirely. It was entirely unintentional. I have the utmost respect for your intelligence, Jeff. I don't think that you're an idiot that doesn't know what the words mean or how words work. I was just saying that.
Can you hear me or
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we will. You keep going in and out, but we can right now.
yeah, no, I keep getting phone calls and I don't know what else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. So
Maybe it's the psyop.
you can hear me now.
Yeah.
My wife is psyoping me. So
Oh.
which is true. Women do that.
Marriage is a psyop.
Yeah, women are a psyop, if anything. They've got to be. Like, I don't know what other explanation there is.
The CIA is behind women. Okay, I get down with that.
Birds are fake, and now it's women are psyops. I like that. I'm gonna make a T-shirt of that. That should be our official merch right there.
The birds are fake thing is really interesting if you actually look into the story behind it.
I did. There's a whole website of it.
Yeah, well, there's a documentary about the guy that created that whole thing. It was just like a prank that started out between some friends, and it just kind of grew up. It kind of got away from them and became like this big like thing where people actually were thinking it was real and stuff. And
literally
for a while, and it's just interesting.
Okay, so you know what an egregore is, right, Jeff?
Go ahead and define it for the viewers. I'm not 100%.
I gotta look it up honestly, just to make sure I'm not using a
definition. The most classical definition of egregore is literally like Gregory, which meant like it comes from Gregory, which were the watchers from Enoch and the apocryphal Old Testament and everything, and then egregore in that.
But it's something supernatural. Non-physical entity.
The more modern,
it's an esoteric concept representing a non-physical entity that arises from the collective thoughts of a distinct group of people.
Right. Well, let me just put it this way.
Like a Platonic form.
Right. Do you think that people who have a religion and agree on the same thing make waves in society? Like, for instance, if people are if 100 Christians take over a city and there's only 100 people in the city, they're going to run things in a Christian manner, at least in their opinion. You get what I'm saying?
Within the bounds of the law, there's some things they just can't do.
Sure, but I'm
constitutionally that the Supreme Court's even said you can't do that.
Sure, but I'm just saying. Let's just say that things are in a tribal sense. 1,000 years ago, right? Like they go off to some random place out in the middle of nowhere. They're all Christian, and they decide they're going to start a Christian town, and it's just run by them, for them, whatever, right? Okay. So because they all have the same agreement on what they believe in. Now, will that make a supernatural entity or whatever? Maybe not. But in general, they're all of the same mindset as far as you can tell, because they say, well, we're all Christian, whatever. Right. So let me, because I understand you're saying psychological operation is a technical term, by the CIA or whatever. But let's try to find something that's comparable to it, whatever we call it, right? So when Mean Mr. Mustache and Goebbels,
Does misinformation work or disinformation?
well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So when Mean Mr. Mustache and Goebbels got the German people to get behind them and run millions of men into war over whatever reason that they thought they were doing. Was that a psychological operation because they convinced a bunch of men to get together and go fight a war?
Like propaganda, using propaganda?
I mean, that's
propaganda is considered a psyop.
If it was part of their military tactics, I would say possibly, very possibly.
Okay. So that's kind
of. I don't know. I don't know the details of that. But
right. Well, that's kind of the baseline that I would look at it, right?
Like maybe if it's government propaganda, maybe that's a psyop. But if it's just citizen propaganda, it's
Right. So I would call that social engineering more than I would say propaganda per se, because basically you're convincing people to do something political that feeds into your political goals, essentially, right?
I would call that persuasive rhetoric. Or sophistry or something like that. But I can accept engineering
of a political, right? So it'd be like propaganda of obviously propaganda is supposed to be political, but it's basically like successful propaganda with a political goal that is successful or something of that nature, right?
Wait, say again.
You're saying it's rhetorical propaganda. That's what did you say? You said rhetorical something.
Well, I would say persuasive rhetoric.
Persuasive rhetoric with a political goal,
like with the sophists in ancient Greece. That was their whole program, was to persuade people of whatever they wanted to persuade them of.
So I'll give you another example. When Napoleon fought at Waterloo and he was losing, and somebody sent a messenger back to England and said Napoleon won, and the stock market of England crashed, and someone bought up all the shares. Wouldn't you call that something along the lines of a psychological operation, because you're using information as a tactic to get something done that you want political goals?
I would have to know the details, because you said someone wrote back and said I'd have to know who that someone was, why they did it, who they were coordinating with.
Right. So let's say that the person who wanted to buy all the shares in England had sent a person down there who was a reporter to bring back false information so he could buy up a bunch of shares of at a discount price because the information was not true.
Was that what happened?
I mean, it's alleged that it happened, but I'm just using it as an example.
And is the person a private citizen, or is this like coordination with the government?
Well, my point is, if the person is paid by the person who wants to buy all the stocks to tell a lie that feeds into his political goal, I mean, that would be like we could colloquially.
That sounds like a conspiracy. Like it would just be the traditional definition of conspiracy.
Right, but I think the reason why I would call that a psychological operation is because the lie being told had an immense psychological impact, which caused something to happen from a tactical and political standpoint that you could capitalize upon. Does that make sense?
I mean, I guess you could use it that way if you want, but to me, that's kind of distorting the concept of psychological operation, which is what I was arguing against from the beginning. So keeping the term within its current bounds.
What is the technical term aside from it being a part of the CIA, if you don't mind? Because I don't think I've ever heard the.
Well, it's not. I mean, like the site I pulled up was from the Army, so I mean, like it's a
it's a military tactic.
Yeah.
Psychological warfare involves the planned use of propaganda and other psychological operations to influence the opinions, emotions, attitudes, and behavior of opposition groups.
Right. So I mean, I don't know how what I'm describing doesn't fit that definition, but
It just sounds like deception or con artistry.
well,
But like
deception.
not every lie is a psyop.
Well, I mean that's arguable, but let's just say that
Well,
you're
that's what we are. That is what we're arguing. Is that psyops is a specific form
sure.
of lie.
Well, it says that basically propaganda meant to impact people's emotions and actions in a political manner, right? I mean, it's basically propaganda with a tactical spin on it or engineered spin on it, right? I mean, it's
Of
basically
opposition groups.
of opposition groups, right? Well, I mean, all propaganda is supposedly against against.
And it's done in the context of a war or wartime. So somebody just like telling a lie to manipulate the stock market is not necessarily psychological.
Here's the thing, though. It's like,
It's an operation, a
do you
military
think,
operation.
you think that people in power don't view keeping, retaining, and expanding power as a military operation?
Probably, but I would not call that a psyop. Like that's what I'm saying. If you're using the word psyop to describe all these other things that are not psyop, all it's doing is clouding what you're trying to say.
If you have a mega corporation that just wants,
If you're trying to say people in power lie to keep power or increase their power, that makes perfect sense. But when you say they're doing psyops, then you lose me.
well, when if they pay people to lie or people who are confused to spread things that they believe to be true, even though that
Yeah, they probably do all of that. I wouldn't call all of those psyops.
Okay, well, whether you want to call it a psyop,
it's a misleading term. It doesn't advance communication.
but you do believe that those things do occur, whether you want to call it a psyop or not, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we can just move past.
Not every person in power, but I'm sure some, and even people not in power probably do it to the extent that they're able.
Oh, for sure. I mean, how many times have you met a woman who just tells you a bunch of shit that she thinks?
I mean, just look at these trolls on the YouTube streams that come on and spout all kind of nonsense.
Yeah, of course. So, anyways, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like whatever you want to call it, it is a real phenomenon that people are referring to. Like, and then thing is like, when you see those three people on a Twitter space talking about it, it to me.
But now the Twitter space, they specifically mentioned CIA and tied it to the CIA. So they were trying to pass whatever they were talking about off as a psyop.
Well, here's the funny thing: Tucker Carlson and Andrew Tate, both their fathers apparently worked for the CIA. So, I mean, it's kind of funny that they bring that up, but so and the thing is this, like, to me, I see them talking about it in that manner on Twitter as a psychological operation, personally, because they have some ulterior motive for why they bring that up and why they say it at a certain particular time in a certain particular way, in my opinion, right? Like,
what if they think it's a psyop? Like, what if they're conspiracy theorists and just think that the CIA really is doing this?
Well, here's the thing is, whether they're aware of what they're doing or not is beside the point. They're playing into a larger narrative, in my opinion, that doesn't matter whether they think that they're fighting the system or not. The fact
now you just made it even more weird. How do people play in? Like, you mean they're repeating misinformation that they picked up from somewhere else?
Well, I think that largely what they're saying is
because that makes sense. Because I think all of y'all are doing that.
Sure, no, that's fair, and I think that what they're saying is 99% true. But the point is like that 1% that they're leaving out is important, right? Like they're telling you the truth, yes, but it's to what end? Like, truth is not just something that sets you free in and of itself. Like, you can know the truth all day, but if it's not actionable, what difference does it make? By telling the American people the CIA is against you and they're psyoping you and they're controlling you all the time, it's like, okay, now what? These guys have massive amounts of influence, massive amounts of power. What are they doing to actually disrupt it?
Nothing. But according to you, they don't know what they're doing. They're unintentionally, wittingly.
I'm not saying that they don't know. What I'm saying is I can't know for sure what they do and do not know.
Yeah, I can't either.
Exactly. So I can't know their motivation of what they're doing, but what I can know is what they're saying is be afraid of your government. And my point is, what are they doing to actually disrupt or change the status quo?
Well,
Really?
apparently Elon is trying to position X as a platform to continue to be able to, because one of their complaints was that you can't, when you try to talk about this stuff, you get shut down. And
Well,
so Elon is creating X to be a place where you can have the conversations without getting shut down.
okay. I
And they even said he broke broke the globalist or something, like they can no longer shut people down thanks to Elon and Twitter. He's broken their something.
do you believe that narrative personally?
No.
Okay.
I do, but I do believe there's censorship on media platforms.
No, but
like I'm constantly having to like be paranoid about, am I going to get shut down on this YouTube station?
My point
Certain
is,
topics come up.
do you believe that Elon is really standing for free speech more than anyone else personally? Like
It seems like he is more or less so far better than a lot of other. I think Andrew Wilson from the Crucible is doing it even better.
I mean, even
And he's not even a free speech activist.
Even though we don't know it for certain, I mean, doesn't it seem a little bit like? I mean, I'm not saying I for sure know what it is, but I must admit that I think that the way that the government did coordinate with social media companies to censor people talking about COVID and vaccines does seem a little bit like a psyop to me.
You talking about the what is it, the Twitter files, Matt Taibbi?
Yeah, like the
yeah, I read those when those came out.
Yeah,
they were. I'm surprised they didn't catch more traction than they did.
Well, I mean, yeah, but the reason, I mean, doesn't that seem to kind of point to some degree of collusion between the? I mean, like the whole thing was about collusion between the media and the
Yes,
government.
I would not call that a psyop, but yes, I do believe it's possible that government was collaborating with big tech to manipulate speech.
But who does the government have do that kind of stuff? They have the military do those kind of things. It was probably a military operation.
Well, it was.
Why does it have to be a military? From what I remember at the Twitter files, it was FBI mostly, I believe.
Yeah, literally CIA and FBI.
I mean, that's law enforcement. It doesn't have to be military.
Well, it was literally.
But I wouldn't call that a psyop either. I would call that like interference with free speech.
Okay. I mean,
but I don't think it was a military operation to collude with Twitter to manipulate.
Whether it was technically a military operation or whether it has the hallmarks of a military operation is kind of, in my opinion,
it doesn't even have the hallmarks of one to me. Like Occam's razor, you're super adding an explanation onto it that's not necessary to explain it.
Using psychological knowledge and a tactical way is not a military. I mean,
well, that's not really what they were doing. They were flat out like trying to influence big tech. They weren't doing it psychologically. They were like flat out manipulating.
The psyop is on the American people that couldn't hear the information. By censoring that information, it keeps people from knowing things, which has a psychological effect. I don't see how that's not a psychological thing.
Also, here's the thing. Also, like the act of censoring is also it gives credence to things, because just by censoring people's doubts, it gives credence to people that they think, well, if it's being censored, there must be something there. See what I mean? It's like whatever your intention is, sometimes your intentions have the opposite effect. And people who do psychology know this. That's why they call it reverse psychology. That's why they have good cop, bad cop. I mean, there are well-known psychological.
I don't think they were trying to psychologically manipulate the American people. I think they were trying to suppress certain narratives and
which the effect
propagate certain other narratives.
Like
they wanted a particular version of reality out there.
Yes, that is literally a psychological operation.
How is that not psychological? I don't understand, man. Like, I'm serious. I'm honestly confused about what you're saying right now.
Because I don't know their motives for doing it. I don't think they were like trying to manipulate the American people. I think they were trying to keep information that they thought was inaccurate or misinformation out of the minds of the public.
Okay.
I don't think they were trying to introduce information into the public to get them to think or act a certain way.
You don't.
They'll make it seem more. I think it was objectionable, but y'all are making it more sinister than I think it was.
So you're saying it has to be nefarious for you to call it that, right?
Yeah, because a lot of psychological operations, according to the military's own website and everything, aren't necessarily for nefarious purposes.
The definition I just read specifically said against opposition groups. I don't think they perceive the American people as an opposition group.
Well, okay, I'll give you direct evidence. That's not
I'll
the
give you
case.
that.
I'll give you the direct evidence that
I think it was bad what they did, and they should not have done it. I don't think their larger goal was to run a psychological operation on the American people. I think it was to help keep Trump from being elected.
So
because a lot of the narratives were around Trump and the election, and then some of it was around COVID.
So hold on. Are you saying that all the stuff you've seen since Trump on, at least with around race, around gender, around education of children, around war, you don't think that any of that was the government manipulating people's emotions about those?
No, I don't think it was top down. I think it was ground up. I think it was organic and emergent.
You don't think that?
What reason do I have to think the government was involved in it?
Okay, let's just say that it was organic and corporate interest funding it. Obviously,
yeah, like ESG and all of that stuff. Yes.
So if the government didn't go and stop those psychological operations from the corporate and the grassroots from destroying, the psychology of the citizens, whether they're just complicit in it or whether they're actually aiding and abetting it, either way, wouldn't you say that bare minimum you have a neglect of duty from the government?
I think the government, from what I read of the Twitter files, their attempts to interfere with speech in the public square was negligent to protect the First Amendment rights.
Well, my point is they protected the free speech of people who were trying to tear the United States apart along racial, gender lines, all these other lines, right? Like, they didn't stop those people's free speech. They didn't stop the media from parroting Black Lives Matter for 4 years, right? So my point is, if they're willing and able to stop people who are concerned about the C-19 stuff, but they're not willing to stop people who are literally trying to foment violent revolution in the United States, then what are we really talking about, right? Like,
I think it was partisan. You're right. I think it was partisan. But I thought that from the beginning of the George Floyd riots on, that we were supposed to be on lockdown and following all these precautions. But then when one political party wants to go out and protest their particular political agenda, then all of a sudden they get exempted from these lockdown rules. I thought that was partisan from the start. I don't think that was a psyop. I don't think that had anything to do with the Twitter files.
Okay.
But I do think there was partisanship from those in leadership.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that whether it was on purpose or not, that those type of things that people see happening had a psychological impact on people?
It had an impact on me. It made me leave the party.
Okay.
I don't call that a psyop. To me, it has to be intentional to be a psyop.
Right. Okay. Got it. Okay. I understand what you're saying. And again, I kind of disagree with you, but I understand what you're trying to get at. But what I'm saying is, whether it's on purpose or not, there are trends that are impacting people psychologically, and any rational person who wanted to maintain and expand their power would capitalize on these effects that are happening, right? Like,
yeah, I think people are doing that with Israel. I think they do that with Ukraine. I think they do that with any political issue that has the power to shift public opinion.
And so I guess I kind of get where you're coming from, because you're basically,
I think advertisers do that.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, advertising was born of the concept of propaganda. Advertising really didn't exist before propaganda did. Propaganda existed first.
Well, persuasive rhetoric has existed since ancient Greece.
Well, I mean, propaganda like billboard signs.
The attempt to sway public opinion is not a new thing. There's just different forms of doing it.
I'm talking about the physical aspect of advertising. Like it's something that started propagating.
Well, what I'm saying is, if people, knowing what we know about the way technological, psychological mechanisms are available to the general public, and especially to corporations and all these people who, whether their intentions are good or bad, have the potential to destroy what is, the United States and what it stands for. Do you feel that confident that the United States government and the people who run it and are supposed to be protecting us are doing an adequate job of trying to hold together the sovereignty and the psychological well-being of the United States and its people?
They're not doing a good job when it comes to what's happening in the academy and the educational system with the Marxism.
Right. So they're not putting adequate.
I think if anything, they're enabling it. They're not doing a good job. But I don't know what.
Okay, now
I don't know what they could do short of censorship, which is to me illiberal and authoritarian.
Okay, now we're getting close.
But they certainly don't have to support it.
Well, they may be enabling it. So now we're getting close. See, now we're getting close to the territory that I think that we can find some common ground on. Because if they're enabling Marxism and they're not enabling, freedom to reign, doesn't that give you suspicion along the lines of like what McCarthy was saying so many years ago?
I don't know about what McCarthy was saying, but it definitely gives me suspicion. Like, I do not trust Kamala Harris. I don't trust whatever woke people are advising Biden. So there are people in the administration and his cabinet that I don't trust, that I think have an anti-liberal or illiberal or anti-American agenda. And that's why I don't want them in power. Like, with this election's going to be really hard for me because I don't want a President Kamala. And I don't trust Biden's health to necessarily last another 4 years. So it's not do I want to vote for Biden or not? It's that how much do I want to prevent somebody like Kamala from becoming in a position of leadership?
Well, let me ask you this. If our suspicions are anywhere near correct that our government is in danger of, just becoming Marxist, wouldn't you want a military that was willing to not allow it to get to that, at least the point?
Yeah, but like I don't know what they could do to not allow it. But also, I don't think Kamala's running a psyop. I think she's dumb and really believes this stuff.
Well, like, here's the thing: if Americans have been propagandized into voting to become a communist hellscape, at what point does the military have the responsibility to say no? We're not going to allow.
I don't think that's for the military to decide. I think that's for the people to decide.
Well,
at what point do the voters say no?
Here's a problem: when people vote to become a communist hellscape, that military becomes the military of the communist. That's the problem with that.
Well, we're not at that point yet. I don't see us getting, like, the closest we got to it really was Trump, and the military didn't go along with him either.
Well, there you go. I mean, that pretty much shows you where they're at. I mean, that's kind of what my point is.
I don't think they're going to go along with a communist either, and I don't think we're at the point of where it's a realistic scenario yet either. But I trust our military to stand by America.
Can I prove to you?
And if it doesn't, then we're already screwed. But I don't believe. I'm not a doomer. I don't think we're at the point where we have to worry about our military siding with communists.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to look up the pillars of communism and let's read them out loud together.
Okay. The Communist Manifesto, the 10 planks.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the 10 planks.
Abolition of private property. Nope. I don't think that's going to happen.
We're getting close.
A heavy progressive or graduated income tax. I don't know enough about that. Abolition of all rights of inheritance. Nope. I don't think we're anywhere near that.
Tax on your inheritance, so we're basically halfway there.
Confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. Nope. Centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of the national.
Wait. Confiscation.
No, I don't even want to get started on the Fed because what my research on the Fed so far, using Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, etc., has been completely different from the conspiracy theory version of it.
Okay.
So I'm not black pilled on the Fed like everybody else is.
Okay, but you don't see how like these things that you're reading out are more or less like 50% or more.
No, I don't.
Okay, let's
No,
start.
I think it's hysteria to think that or catastrophizing. Centralization of the means of communication and transportation in the hands of the state. No, but communication is being centralized by private companies, and I think that's a danger. That's why I'm for decentralization of
governed by the state.
Extension of factories and instruments of production. Well, we've shipped all our factories overseas. We don't have the producing power we once did.
Exactly.
The bringing into cultivation of wastelands and the improvement of the soil generally in accordance with a common plan. I don't know enough about soil.
Okay.
Equal obligation of all to work. Nope. I don't think we're anywhere close to that. I think if people don't want to work, they don't have to work, and they suffer the consequences. I don't think there's any obligation to work. I haven't seen anything even close to that. Industrial armies. Nope. Combination of agriculture with manufacturing industries. Gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by a more equitable distribution of the population over the country. I don't see anything like that happening. And if anything, I see people leaving the cities. Free education for all children. We do have that, but that doesn't make us communist. Abolition of children's factory labor. Combination of education with industrial production. I don't see that. In fact, I see a move away from it. I see like things like shop and vocational classes being eliminated or discouraged. I don't see an increase. So that was the 10 that I saw.
So you don't see any parallel between what he's writing there and what's going on?
No. I don't.
Okay, go to the first one again. What does it say? Abolition of private property.
Yeah, something like that.
Do you think people own more property now or less property now on average?
Like, is the state abolishing our right to own private property? Do you not have the right to own private property in land and application of all rents of land to public purpose?
You have to pay property tax on anything you own.
The example they're giving on this website is eminent domain. So the government still has eminent domain. That doesn't make us communists, and that rarely applies to you as an individual.
Everything you own in the United States.
You have to what?
Do you have to pay property tax on your house, your land, your car?
Yeah, but that's not the abolition of private property, and that varies from state to state.
It absolutely is. You have to pay property tax on.
Yeah, because you have the right to own that property. That's not you not having the right to own private property.
Don't pay your.
I don't know how you go. I don't know how you get from having to pay property tax to abolition of the right to own private property.
Because you don't own something, you pay tax.
You still own it.
To that degree, it's kind of like I mean, a tax at that point is almost like paying rent on your own property, though, isn't it? Kind of. Very similar.
I mean, different states do it different ways, but
that's true. And
property tax is not communism,
here, so.
And it doesn't mean you don't own your thing.
I mean, now we're talking semantics because it is kind of exactly what we're saying here is like you kind of can't own something if you're forced to pay something to own it. I mean,
well, you have to pay to own it in the first place.
But why do you have to keep paying for it?
Because that's the way our system's set up. Maybe there's some states you don't. I don't know what all the property tax rules are. I know even at the local level, it can be different.
Not all states have sales tax.
None of that's communism.
Oh, I'm not saying it's communism. I was just talking about the property thing.
Well, I mean, communism.
Well, he's trying to make the argument that it's abolition of private property, that you don't own your property.
Well, you can't,
because if you don't pay your tax, they're going to come take it from you. That means that the right to own property has been abolished.
That is literally exactly what it is. Like that literally is.
Well, you're interpreting that way, but that's not what it is.
So
you have the right to own property that has not been abolished.
If you can have it taken from you at any point, it doesn't make sense.
Like this, is why we need Joshua Jones, because he lives in a communist country.
Yeah,
he could tell us what property ownership in a communist country looks like.
There's a lot of communist countries where you can own property and you don't get taxed for it once you own it. That's the funny part.
Well, then how are they How are they one of these 10 planks if people can own private property? I thought that was one of the big principles of communism is to abolish private ownership.
Well, that's exactly what I
So
want.
how are people in communist countries, if they're communists, being allowed to own things?
Because they're not really communist, but United States.
Well, neither are we. If they're not, we're certainly not.
Okay, what's the second? What's the second plank?
We're not going through all 10 again. Tell me.
I don't remember. I'm just
a progressive or graduated income tax, which I know nothing about. I can't even speak to this one.
Yeah, I mean,
we do have that. We definitely do have that. Our income tax system is progressive. Like the more money you have, the more tax you pay.
A heavy progressive or graduated income tax. That word "heavy" is doing a lot of work to me.
Yeah, I think
Washington State doesn't even have income tax, so I don't pay income tax here.
Yeah, I don't either in Texas. So. But you pay it to the government, though. You pay it to the federal government, not to the
federal government. Yeah, but it's not. I wouldn't call it a heavy progressive or graduated income tax.
Well, technically, you pay the Federal Reserve, but
it's like you're trying to pick apart and find little ways to frame something as communism, but that's not the same thing as clearly demonstrating that this is communism.
I think that you're making. I think you're making.
It seems to me disingenuous and not in good faith.
Okay.
No, I don't think Jackson's bad faith at all. I think he really genuinely believes.
It's like wanting to see. It's drawing the conclusion and then fitting the facts to the conclusion. It's wanting to see communism where it's not, and then try like Jesus on the toast.
How can you say you own private property
Paradolia
when you have to pay a tax to own it? It doesn't make sense. It's not private
because you have the right to own it.
Like I'm willing to accept
paying the tax as part of that ownership.
I'm willing to accept eminent domain over
communism is you don't have the right to own it in the first place. So the fact that you have the right to own it at all makes it not communist.
I mean, I don't think we're heading towards communism myself. I agree with the individual point of view. I just don't think that it points to communism.
It's not going to be direct communism. It's going to be a mix of all the things. The whole point is I'm just demonstrating how
the United States is way too capitalist for us to be moving away from that system. Like not even in our lifetimes or our grandkids' lifetimes.
We're already so far away from capitalism. It's not even funny, dude. I mean,
I don't think we are. Look at all the big corporations and
yeah.
I just started a business this year. It's very like if I could start a business, we're not moving away from capitalism.
Yeah, there's a lot of
things to do. Anybody can do it.
There's a bunch of there's a whole lot
they can participate in the market.
There's a whole lot of business owners in communist countries. It doesn't mean that they're not communists.
Well, we just went through the planks.
Those people.
If your goal is to convince me that the United States is communist, I want to save you the trouble right now. You're not going to succeed. Not based on this.
There's a lot of people who own businesses in China. Doesn't mean they're not communist.
If you're trying to convince me the United States is non-capitalist, you're not even going to succeed.
I don't really think that communism is truly communist though. They're like some sort of like weird hybrid thing that doesn't really
all mixed together. It's not only communism. We're so far beyond pure communism. That's why I don't see commie lib as a threat, because he's a pure communist. That's very different than what I'm talking about. There's going to be elements of communism blended with capitalism, blended with fascism, blended with other things.
Yeah, we could be moving closer to what China has, which I think is probably just as bad. It's probably worse than straight communism.
I don't think we're moving away from capitalism.
Well, I'm saying, but China's moving towards capitalism.
China is more capitalist than America in a lot of ways, dude. I mean, I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's just true. Like, you could argue China is more capitalist than America.
Yeah, but whatever the ways are, doesn't mean the U.S. is moving away from capitalism.
Well, You don't have to be moving
That's a
away.
logical fallacy. Just because China may be more capitalist in certain specific ways doesn't make the U.S. less capitalist or moving away from
Well,
capitalism.
if
I'm
you have,
curious. What do you mean by how are we less capitalist? That how are we that? Give me an example of how we're so far away from capitalism.
if you have 50% oil and you mix in, if you have a cup with 50% oil in it and it's the rest is empty, and you mix in 10% wine and 10% water and 10% something else, it doesn't change that it's still 50% oil. Do you get what I mean? Like, you can mix in whatever you want into it, but you still are changing the dilution and the concoction that you have to begin with, right? You know, you can add other stuff in without it necessarily changing the percentage of what you started with, right? You know, Thomas Jefferson thought the United States was going to be 80% agrarian. Are we 80% agrarian? No, we're not. You know, so
What does that have to do with us moving away from capitalism?
because the United States was designed to be mostly a bunch of farmer independent owners of land, not a bunch of corporations running the world for trade routes and technology to put a phone in everybody's hand. Like,
But aren't the corporations a product of capitalism?
Okay. Isn't I mean, say that again. You're saying corporations are
Aren't they a feature of capitalism? Like they arose because we live in a capitalist society.
Well, just because something can't arise in a environment, does that mean that we should just allow it to continue?
But that's a different question than whether we're moving away from capitalism or not.
Well, if you're conflating corporatism with capitalism now.
So you're saying we're more corporatist than we are capitalist, and I don't make the distinction
what's the
between
difference between those two terms?
None of them is communism.
Definitionally, what's the difference between corporatism and communism, Jack? I actually don't know.
I don't know the exact definition, but what I'm saying is you're trying to talk about capitalism like it's this like 500 years ago thing, when we're talking about like the situation that we're in now, which is
capitalism is the free market. Marx is the one that came along and reframed it as
Do you
capitalism.
think the United States is a free market by any stretch?
Yes. I still think there's a free market because I'm on it. I participate in it. So you're going to have to either I'm hallucinating that that I'm participating in a free market, or you're going to have to somehow convince me that I'm not, because I make my living in it.
What industry do you not have to get government permission to be involved in?
How does that make it not a free market just because it's regulated?
Do you think we should have no regulation in the markets then, Jack?
I'm just pointing out that using the term free market.
And actually, as a life coach, there is no regulation. You could hang up a shingle today and call yourself a life coach.
Yeah, but you still got to report your income and pay tax on it. And
yeah, but that's not. It doesn't mean the profession's regulated. You can still participate in the market.
Okay.
So today, anybody that wanted can call themselves a life coach and start selling coaching services and participate in the free market with no regulation whatsoever.
Sure, but virtually every other industry that people have to, do to survive is not that way,
No, you could go get a job, probably at a coffee shop or McDonald's, and do the same thing.
Strictly regulated. You can't even save for your own retirement. You're forced to put a 401k.
You're seeing barriers to the market that I just don't see there. I used to work in employment, like helping people with disabilities find employment, and we looked at the different barriers that are in the way of employment or not. You're seeing barriers that are not there. There's nothing stopping you right now from getting a job somewhere with no regulation and pulling in a wage or an income that lets you participate in the free market. You can sell your labor on the market right now with no regulation.
That's bullshit, because it's very heavy.
You can go get a job at a grocery store right now today.
Being employed, you're very heavily regulated. very heavily regulated.
But you're not prevented from participating in the free market.
Well, I can just start a communist dictatorship and call it the free market, and then we'll just say, well, I have a free market.
Well, try it. I'm just saying currently you can sell your labor for wages on the free market.
Yeah. Well,
so you were saying we're moving away from the free market, and I'm saying
I'm not saying we are moving. I'm saying we are way beyond that term.
How? When the free market is still there? How do you move beyond something that is still there?
One day, so in the future, I'm not mad, by the way. This is a very interesting conversation.
No, I don't think you are. I'm not mad either.
No, we know you, Jack. We know you're not mad.
But this is a very fascinating conversation. But one day, soon, maybe tomorrow, or the next time, we'll start unpacking these definitions because, Jeff, you're one of my favorite people to have these conversations with because I do love the way that you pull these definitions up and use them. Because I think once we start opening up these definitions like free market and capitalism, we start examining what they mean, especially in a legal sense, because I know that you do like the legal stuff. You'll start seeing that these definitions do not mean what people think they mean, is what I'm trying to get at, right? Like you're just using terms without really comprehending. Like I'm not saying that you're dumb. I'm saying like there's a colloquial.
Well, just real quick, I pulled up Wikipedia and some other site. In economics, a free market is an economic system in which the prices of goods and services are determined by supply and demand expressed by sellers and buyers. Another one is the free market is a summary description of all voluntary exchanges that take place in a given economic environment. We have all of that here in the U.S. right now. So we haven't moved away from it.
Telling you the government has so much impact on pricing, for example, on almost every single industry that you can't.
But that doesn't disqualify it from being a free market.
Okay, well,
is it the word free that's hanging you up? Because
but
we have a market. We have a regulated market. You don't have to call it a free market.
We have a free market, but it is extremely dependent.
And I want it regulated. I don't want an unregulated market.
Of course, I'm not saying I'm against regulation either, but what I'm saying is it is not free in the sense that people say that it's a free market. It's
okay, but it's free enough to still qualify as a market that people can participate in.
Which we have private ownership when you have to pay tax to own your property. I mean, you can call it whatever you want,
but you still own your house.
But there's
that's what Andrew Tate was saying. Like Andrew Tate was in that Twitter space was saying nobody owns anything. That his name can be on a piece of paper, but if he doesn't play by the right rules, they can go to a judge and get a different piece of paper, and then suddenly he doesn't own that anymore. That the only thing you own is like your character, your soul, your internal characteristics, but you don't own anything external.
That's literally true, though. Yes, that is true. But there's a deeper side of it than what he's saying. But yes, that is technically from the philosophical standpoint, he is correct. But that's what I'm saying. You can define things philosophically, legally, politically. There's a lot.
I start with the dictionary, like the conventional, traditional, widely accepted definition in the Merriam-Webster or dictionary.com or Wikipedia.
Sure, but
a WordNick gives several definitions from several sources. I use that one a lot. So I start with the common definition.
Definitions require interpretation too, though. That's my point. It's like,
yeah, but dictionaries are really, really good at helping with that.
Oh, I agree. And once you start looking at legal case law and legal definitions of words, you'll see just how unhelpful they can be to the people who are not initiated to understand what those words mean.
Yeah, I'm not initiated either. That's why I start with the dictionary definition. That's like for the common man, that's a good starting point.
No, I agree. And again, I'm not discounting the common man's interpretation, but what I'm saying is, look, I have this dictionary, Thompson's New Graded Series. It's called Henderson's Test Words and Spelling. It's a very old dictionary that I got many years ago from the 1800s. It is from the year, let me see, 1873. So I'm going to open up the first page here. Let's see here. Where's this at? Sorry, let me go back to the first page. My kid is repeating everything I say right now. So.
Oh, that's you.
All right. So here's the first word of the dictionary: vicissitude, change, revolution.
How is that the first word? It starts with a V.
Yeah.
Was it not alphabetized?
Well, this is what people were concerned with back in the 1870s. Let's see here. It was next word is there's a bunch of words here, but I'm just jumping around. It's irascible, very susceptible to anger, irritable. Let's see, conspiracy, a combination of men for an evil purpose. Let's see, auspicious, having omens of success, favorable, propitious. Let me see. There's another. I was looking for the one. There's a couple of these. Hey, Louis, be quiet, buddy. There's a bunch of these words like tyranny and all, like they have all these like very interesting definitions that they put right at the beginning of the book. But but my point is, if you go open up a Black's Law dictionary, for instance, and you try to comprehend what these words mean in a technical sense, it's not going to be one-to-one, right? You're going to be
legal definitions can definitely be different from
they're context dependent, but all words are. And then there's also the etymology, and I used to teach Greek and Latin roots to my middle schoolers, so I can use context and examine a word and get an idea from the etymology and the context.
This is why
I'm pretty good at like figuring out what words mean.
Oh no, I know, and this is the thing is like I think I could convert you to Christianity if you were to go and actually look at what the words meant in the original text. But
no, because people don't rise from the dead.
Yeah, but again,
that's going to be a hard one to get around. That a human being died and then suddenly came back, it was not dead anymore.
But my point is, most Christians are not interested in going and understanding what the original words meant in context, for example, right? And this is
you'll convert me to like some modern version of Christianity, but the resurrection was central to most of historical Christianity.
Sure, but what I'm saying is, I'm trying to convert people to actual just Americanism, right? Because most people are.
Hey, you ain't have to convert me there. You got me there. I am.
Right, I know.
I am a 100% Americanist.
No, I know.
There's no country I love more than America, and I haven't even been to other countries to even test it.
Oh, okay.
You do. You'll certainly appreciate it.
I'm as pro-America as they come.
I am too, but my point is, I'm just saying that I want people to have things in context. Like if you had some context of what is really going on behind the scenes and what.
Well, how do you know? Like you, Jack, knows what's going on behind the scenes that we don't know. Like you have some special source.
I don't need all the details to know that when lawyers are writing your law.
So you're making inferences.
We all have to make inferences.
Right, but we don't all have to pass them off as reality. That's like the beginning step of truth seeking.
Well, the beginning step of truth seeking is to know what you don't know.
Maybe that helps, but it's observation first of all, like perception.
Yeah, but my point is
data collection, observation, and then from there you can start drawing inferences, which are part of the hypothesis stage of the scientific method. And then you experiment, or in this case, reality test, which is what I try to do.
Sure, but
and then you draw conclusions, which should constantly be open to revision as new data comes in, and the experiments yield like more refined results. And getting really good at like forming hypotheses from like making sure you have a large enough data set, and that it's a relevant data set, and then learning how to draw the best, like develop the best hypotheses from that data set. And there's kind of a little bit of skill and art to that. And then from there you reality test. And then you verify your conclusions, or you draw new conclusions. And he's his internet betrayed him again. Oh, he keeps saying he's a busy guy today.
No,
It
he's
must
a
be.
good guy generally. Every time I talk to him, man, he's like driving here or there. I don't know exactly. I know he used to work in sales. I don't know what he does now.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. We can continue this next time. We'll start with the free market. And I wanted to mention it's subscription only, but the Oxford Dictionary is the authoritative source. Where it's the most detailed and extensive like picture of any given word. When I worked in the library, we had the big Oxford dictionaries in the reference section. They were gigantic, and you'd have to. It was on a like a stand, and it was so big you couldn't even like pick it up in your hands to open it. You just had
Yeah,
to
I know.
open it
I've used it
on the
before.
stand and browse through it.
It's really good for etymology study and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
It shows all the uses that a word ever had. It shows the very first use of the word. It gives the example of when the word was first used. It gives it does almost like a scholarly analysis on each individual word.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, and as far as I know, it has not, unlike Merriam-Webster's dictionary, which has become somewhat politicized over the years. They've started including like kind of like more political definitions of things as opposed to literal ones.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
but Oxford's definitions, as far as I have seen, have never fallen prey to that. No, I have not looked at it. I guess I haven't looked it up in a long time. But
No,
well,
you get the historical like picture
yeah.
with the Oxford. Well, we can you want to wrap up and go watch an episode? I want to do a plug for my men's group. It's tonight at 6 p.m. Central. We do it every Monday. So if you want to be part of that, let me know. We do it on Zoom. And then tonight, I forgot, we're having our social justice weekly episode with Anton where we go over TikToks.
We need men's groups to Discord, since the video Discord things would work.
Well, the problem is that there's some people that attend that are not on Discord. So in order to keep it accessible to them, I have to keep it on Zoom.
Okay.
I was trying to move it to the stream. Like I would love to do a men's group live on the stream, but you lose that confidentiality and ability to really open up.
We should do two versions. We should do the men's group. We should do a men's group. Like maybe like we could have a online after chat after the first part.
That's a great idea. The problem is it's the same time as my thing with Anton. I'd either have to move the men's group to another day or move the Anton thing. And I think Monday is the day that's best for him. So anyway, like as things stand now, tonight we're gonna do the social, where we go over the TikToks and look at what's going on with social justice, usually like trans or queer, something like that. And that'll be at 8 p.m. Central. And then other than that, we'll be back tomorrow at our usual time, 2 p.m.
I, as usual, have nothing to promote, so.
Buy it Poshmark. He has clothes.
Find my Poshmark account.
If you're thinking about going to Ross's, Dress for Less, or the dollar store, wherever you get your clothes, give Chris a try because his brands, I think, are a little.
I have the same brands and everything, but I actually take care. I go through and I make sure if there's even a spot that came from like the warehouse I got them from, I clear the spots out. I do all that stuff. But
tell your friends. And it's Christmas time. Maybe you're looking for Christmas gift for somebody. Go browse with Poshmark.
But it's not my regular name. It's under like my weird old music name, which is Werner Latskin.
You want to type it in the main chat?
Yeah, but I just have to. I have to actually pull the because I can't remember what the actual address is, so I have to pull it up here. Put it in the chat there. I put it up in the chat a lot, but it doesn't really. I don't know. I some days I get like 3 sales, and then I don't get another one for a week. But there it is. All right, yeah. You guys, see you guys tomorrow. I mean, you'll see us tomorrow.
And if y'all, Chris and I started watching Dragula. It's a drag queen series with it's like a horror. It's monster drag, they call it. It's like gothic, satanic.
I would not call it much horror. It's not scary in any way, but still, it's horror themed. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's horror themed drag, and so we started watching that. If you have any interest in that whatsoever, we'll be on Discord watching that. Otherwise, I'll see you either tonight with Anton or tomorrow at the same time. Okay, well, good show, good talk. It set up some future conversations too. I like that. Right, and I will see you tonight.
See you in a minute, actually.
Satellite.